So picture this. The Zephyrian Collective is getting absolutely demolished. These silicon-based parasites, called a void swarm, are basically eating their way through every planet in the sector. We're talking about these beautiful crystalline cities just crumbling as these things strip away anything that's alive. High Counselor Vexa is watching her entire civilization die. So she does the only thing left, broadcast this ancient emergency signal into deep space. It's basically, hey, anybody out there? We're dying. Our weapons don't work. They eat everything. And guess who picks up the phone? Humanity. Just barely figuring out how to travel between stars with our tiny little fleet of exploration ships. But let me back up a bit, because you need to understand just how bad things are for the Zephyrians. These aren't just some random aliens getting picked on. We're talking about one of the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. Think of cities that look like they're made of pure light and crystal stretching up into the clouds. Their technology is so advanced they can literally reshape matter at the molecular level. Their ships move through space like they're dancing, and they've been around for thousands of years longer than we have. And yet, here they are, completely helpless against these void swarm creatures. Picture locusts, but made of living metal and crystal, and instead of eating crops, they devour anything with biological matter. Trees, grass, animals, people. Everything organic just gets consumed and turned into more of them. The really scary part? These things reproduce by eating. The more they consume, the bigger their swarm gets. The Zephyrians tried everything. Energy weapons that could vaporize mountains? The swarm just absorbed energy. Kinetic weapons that could punch through starship hulls? The parasites scattered and regrouped within minutes. Chemical weapons? These things don't breathe or have any biological systems to poison. It's like trying to fight a computer virus with a sword. Your weapons are designed for the wrong kind of enemy. Vex had been watching her homeworld die for 3 months. First, the outer agricultural zones went dark. Then the smaller cities started going silent. The swarm moved like a tide, unstoppable and hungry. Evacuation ships launched carrying millions of refugees. But there was nowhere safe to run. Every planet they fled to eventually fell to the same fate. That's when she remembered the old protocols. See, the Zephyrians have this ancient communication system, something built by their ancestors for absolute emergencies. It's basically a galactic SOS signal that broadcasts on every possible frequency across vast distances. The thing is, it hadn't been used in over 1,000 years because, honestly, what could threaten a civilization as advanced as theirs? Standing in what remained of the capital city's command center, with swarm creatures clicking and chittering in the distance, Vexa activated the emergency beacon. Her message was simple and desperate. This is High Counselor Vexa of the Zephyrian Collective. Our worlds are dying. An unknown force consumes all biological matter. Our weapons are useless. If any civilization receives this transmission, we beg for assistance. We offer everything we possess to whoever can help us survive. The signal went out across the galaxy, bouncing between relay stations, spreading through hyperspace channels, reaching civilizations both known and unknown. Most species that received it just filed it away as another hopeless cause. After all, if the mighty Zephyrians couldn't handle it, what chance did anyone else have? But then there's humanity. We're still figuring out this whole space travel thing. Our fastest ships take weeks to go distances that other species cover in hours. Our weapons are basically upgraded versions of things we use to hunt animals back on Earth. By galactic standards, we're like cavemen who just discovered fire trying to fix a computer. When that distress signal reached our monitoring stations, there was this moment of pure confusion. Here's an alien civilization with technology that makes our best stuff look like stone tools, and they're asking for help. The smart thing, the logical thing, would be to say, sorry, we're not qualified for this level of problem. But here's the thing about humans. We don't really do logical when someone's in trouble. We do what feels right. And what felt right was grabbing our gear, loading up our ships, and heading straight into what was probably going to be the most dangerous situation humanity had ever faced. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The most advanced species in the sector was calling for help, and the newest kids on the galactic block were the only ones crazy enough to answer. But sometimes being crazy is exactly what the universe needs. Captain Tom Bradley gets his distress call aboard the UES Harmony, humanity's fanciest ship, which honestly isn't saying much. His crew's like, are we seriously going to fight aliens when we can barely handle space travel? But Tom makes a call that changes everything. We answer distress calls. Period. Here's the kicker, though. When humans head to Zephyrian space, we bring our entire zoo with us. Military dogs, carrier pigeons, horses, even mice for tight spaces. To the rest of the galaxy that's gone full artificial evolution, we look like we're bringing a petting zoo to a space war. Now, let me tell you about Tom Bradley. This guy isn't your typical space captain. He used to run search and rescue operations back on Earth, the kind of guy who'd rappel down a mountain in a blizzard to save a stranded hiker. When humanity started exploring space, they didn't want the flashiest pilots or the smartest scientists leading these missions. They wanted people who wouldn't abandon someone in trouble. Tom fit that bill perfectly. The UES Harmony is basically humanity's flagship, but calling it fancy is like calling a pickup truck a luxury vehicle. Sure, it's our best, but compared to what other species are flying around the galaxy, it's held together with duct tape and hope. The ship's got a crew of about 200, most of whom have never been in a real fight, let alone an interstellar war. When that Zephyrian distress signal came through, the bridge went dead silent. Lieutenant Jenny Walsh, the communications officer, just stared at her screen like she couldn't believe what she was reading. "Captain," she said, "you need to hear this." She played back the message, and you could hear the desperation in Vex's voice even through the translation software. The crew started arguing immediately. Chief Engineer Mike Roberts was the first to speak up. "Sir, with all due respect, we're talking about a civilization that's light years ahead of us technologically. If they can't handle this threat, what makes us think we can?" Navigation Officer Lisa nodded in agreement. "Our weapons are basically glorified fireworks compared to what they've got. We'd be flying into a suicide mission." But Tom just stood there, listening to that distress call play over and over. Finally, he turned to his crew and said something that would become legendary in human space history. "We answer distress calls. Period. That's not up for debate. The only question is how fast we can get there." Here's where things get interesting. When word got back to Earth Command about the mission, they started loading up supply ships with everything they thought might be useful. Standard military equipment, medical supplies, engineering tools, all the usual stuff. But then someone had a crazy idea. What if the problem wasn't that the Zephyrians didn't have good enough weapons? What if they were missing something else entirely? That's when humanity did something that would puzzle alien species for generations to come. We started loading animals onto our ships, not for food or companionship. Well, not just for companionship, but as active members of our military units. German shepherds trained for combat and detection work. Carrier pigeons that could navigate by magnetic fields when electronic systems failed. Horses for terrain that vehicles couldn't handle. Even cats and mice for situations where human-sized creatures couldn't fit. To understand how weird this looked to other species, you need to know something about galactic civilization. Most advanced races had long ago abandoned what they called biological dependencies. They created artificial intelligences for companionship, mechanical sensors that were more accurate than animal senses, and robots that could go places living creatures couldn't. The idea of bringing actual animals into space was like showing up to a high-tech conference with a stone axe. The Galactic Council species had received that same distress signal from the Zephyrians. The Andromedans ran probability calculations and determined intervention, had a 3% success rate. The Centaurian Empire decided it wasn't worth risking their fleets. The Silicon Brotherhood actually considered the Void Swarm a potential ally, since they were both non-biological. But when they heard about humanity's response, the reactions ranged from confusion to outright laughter. "They're bringing pets to a war zone," one Andromedan diplomat reportedly said. "It's almost endearing how primitive they are." But Tom Bradley didn't care what other species thought. He'd seen what working dogs could do in disaster zones, how horses could navigate terrain that would stop a vehicle dead, how a pigeon could find its way home across hundreds of miles when GPS failed. Every animal on those ships had a job, and every job filled a gap that technology couldn't. As the human fleet jumped toward Zephyrian space, Carrying their unusual cargo of soldiers, scientists, and creatures, Tom stood on the bridge of the Harmony and watched the stars stretch into lines. He didn't know if they'd succeed, but he knew they'd try. That's what humans do. The humans show up at the Zephyrian homeworld, and these elegant aliens are just confused. They expected laser cannons or magic powers, but instead, they get biological warfare teams that include actual animals. Dogs sniffing out void swarm chemicals that fancy sensors miss. Horses carrying riders through terrain where hover vehicles fail. Ravens doing reconnaissance like living drones. The Zephyrians are watching humans work with dozens of species, like it's the most natural thing in the world. And every animal brings something to the fight that pure technology just can't match. Picture the scene when Captain Tom Bradley steps off his shuttle onto the Zephyrian homeworld. The first thing that hits you is how beautiful these aliens are. Tall, graceful, with skin that seems to shimmer like crystal in the light. They're standing there in their flowing robes, probably expecting some kind of grand military procession with massive weapons and intimidating war machines. Instead, they watch as humans unload crates full of barking dogs, cooing pigeons, and neighing horses. High Counselor Vexa approaches Tom with this polite, but completely bewildered expression. Through the translation device, she asks, "Captain Bradley, we are grateful for your response, but where are your weapons? Your war machines?" Tom grins and points to his German shepherd, Rex, who's busy sniffing around the landing area. "Ma'am, you're looking at them." You can practically see the confusion ripple through the gathered Zephyrians. Here's their most advanced sensor array, scanning for void swarm traces, coming up completely blank. But Rex suddenly goes rigid, his ears perked up, nose twitching. He starts pulling his handler, Sergeant Kelly Murphy, toward a section of ruins about 50 meters away. Kelly trusts her partner completely and follows. Within minutes, they've uncovered a hidden swarm nest that the Zephyrian scanners completely missed. The swarm creatures had somehow learned to mask their electromagnetic signatures, but they couldn't fool a dog's nose. Rex could smell the chemical compounds they released, something so subtle that even the most sophisticated artificial sensors couldn't detect it. The Zephyrians are watching this with their mouths hanging open. Their technology costs millions of credits and requires teams of specialists to operate. Rex just needs a good breakfast and someone to throw a ball with him afterward. But that's just the beginning. Lieutenant Dave Cooper shows up riding his horse, Ranger, through terrain that would make a hover vehicle cry. The void swarm has torn up the landscape, leaving jagged crystal formations and unstable ground everywhere. The Zephyrian military tried sending in their floating vehicles, but the energy signatures from the swarm mess with their navigation systems. Meanwhile, Ranger just picks his way carefully through the obstacles like it's a fun trail ride, carrying Dave to observation points where they can coordinate the human response. Then there's the Ravens. Staff Sergeant Linda Hayes releases a dozen of these intelligent birds, and they spread out across the battlefield like living surveillance drones. The Zephyrians have been trying to track swarm movements with satellite imagery, but the creatures move through underground tunnel systems that their sensors can't penetrate. The Ravens, though, they can spot the tiny vibrations in the crystal formations that indicate movement below. They fly back to Linda and literally tell her where the swarm is hiding using a series of calls that she's trained to understand. What really gets the Zephyrians is watching how naturally humans work with these animals. It's not like operating a machine where you press buttons and get predictable results. It's this constant conversation. Humans reading their animals' body language, responding to subtle cues, making split-second decisions based on trust built over years of partnership. Vexa pulls Tom aside after watching his teams in action for a few hours. "Captain, I must ask, how do your creatures know what to do? Our artificial intelligences require detailed programming for every scenario." Tom scratches Rex behind the ears while the dog pants happily beside them. "That's the thing about real intelligence, Counselor. You don't program it, you partner with it. Rex here has been working with humans for thousands of years of evolution. His ancestors helped us hunt, helped us survive, helped us build civilization. He doesn't need programming because he understands the mission on a level that goes deeper than logic." The Zephyrians start to realize something that shakes their understanding of advanced civilization. They'd spent centuries perfecting artificial systems, creating machines that could outperform biological senses in controlled conditions. But they'd lost something in the process: the adaptability, intuition, and partnership that come from millions of years of evolution working together. Private Tim Watson demonstrates this perfectly when his ferret Bandit slips into a ventilation system that's too small for humans and too complex for robots. Bandit comes back 20 minutes later, chittering excitedly, and leads a human team straight to a major swarm staging area. No programming, no sensors, just a little furry partner doing what ferret have always done: exploring tight spaces and reporting back to their human friends. By the end of the first day, the Zephyrians aren't just watching anymore, they're learning. They're seeing that sometimes the most advanced technology is the one that's been tested and refined by evolution itself. Here's where it gets good. Turns out the Void Swarm has a massive weakness. They can't handle the complex biological stuff from Earth's ecosystem. All that primitive symbiosis the sterile galaxy looks down on, that's millions of years of evolutionary warfare right there. Cats hunting swarm scouts through air vents. Dog packs working with human soldiers to corner swarm clusters. Even the bacteria in human guts is basically poison to these silicon parasites. The Zephyrians finally get it. We didn't conquer our world. We learned to fight alongside it. The breakthrough happens completely by accident. Corporal Jake Williams is treating a minor wound when one of those silicon parasites gets too close. A tiny drop of his blood hits the creature, and the thing just dies. Not slowly, not with some dramatic explosion. It just stops moving like someone flipped a switch. Jake stares at it for a second, then calls over Dr. Amy Foster, the mission's chief biologist. Amy takes one look, and her eyes go wide. "Jake, do that again." So Jake carefully lets another drop of blood fall on a different swarm creature. Same result: instant death. Within hours, Amy has teams collecting samples from every human, animal, and even plant they brought from Earth. The results are incredible. It's not just blood that kills these things. It's practically everything biological from Earth. Saliva, sweat, even the air that humans breathe out after it's been through their lungs. The more complex the biological compound, the more deadly it is to the swarm. Amy discovers that the silicon parasites evolved in a completely sterile environment, probably in a vacuum of space or on dead worlds. They literally have no defense against the complex organic chemistry that Earth life uses every single day. But here's where it gets really interesting. The animals aren't just carriers of this biological warfare. They're active participants. Staff Sergeant Kevin O'Brien watches his cat, Whiskers, stalk swarm scouts through the air vents of a Zephyrian building. Every time Whiskers breathes on one of these creatures, it dies instantly. Her saliva is like acid to them. Even better, cats naturally hunt small, quick-moving creatures, so Whiskers is perfectly designed to chase down swarm scouts that human soldiers can't catch. The dogs figure out too. Rex and his pack start using a hunting strategy that's thousands of years old. They herd the swarm creatures into kill zones where human soldiers are waiting. But they're not just herding them toward weapons. They're herding them toward other humans and animals whose biological presence creates these invisible toxic clouds that the swarm can't handle. Lieutenant Pete Johnson realizes something amazing while watching his horse, Thunder, work. Every step Thunder takes leave behind microscopic traces of organic matter, shed skin cells, bacteria, even the oils from his hooves. For humans and earth animals, this is just normal daily life. For the silicon parasites, it's like walking through a minefield of deadly chemical weapons. The Zephyrians are watching all this happen with complete fascination and growing hope. High Counselor Vex approaches Dr. Foster with questions that reveal just how different their civilizations really are. "Doctor, your animals require feeding, cleaning, medical care. Why did your species not replace them with more efficient mechanical alternatives?" Amy laughs while she's examining swarm samples under her microscope. Because they're not just tools, Counselor. They're partners. Every Earth animal carries a piece of our planet's ecosystem with them. All those bacteria, microorganisms, complex organic compounds. That's 4 billion years of biological innovation. You can't just build that in a lab. The real game changer comes when Private Lisa Brooks gets sick with a common Earth cold. She's embarrassed about it, worried she'll be taken off duty. Instead, Dr. Foster discovers that the viruses in Lisa's system produce compounds that are absolutely devastating to the swarm. Within hours of Lisa walking through a swarm-infested area, every silicon parasite in a 100-meter radius is dead. Captain Tom Bradley puts it all together during a strategy meeting with the Zephyrians. Your species spent thousands of years creating clean, sterile environments. You eliminated disease, purified your air, sterilized your water. It was smart, logical, efficient. But we took a different path. We learned to live with billions of microorganisms. Our bodies are entire ecosystems. Our animals carry even more diversity. What you see as primitive contamination we call home. The tide of battle turns completely. Human-animal teams start clearing buildings in minutes instead of hours. Sergeant Danny Clark leads a mixed unit of soldiers and animals through swarm territory, and it's like watching the world's most effective pest control team. The ravens scout ahead. The dogs flush out hidden creatures. The cats hunt down anything small enough to hide, and the horses carry teams quickly between objectives. Every breath they take, every step they make, every drop of biological material they leave behind creates a toxic environment that the swarm simply can't survive. The Zephyrians finally understand what they're witnessing. This isn't just military strategy. It's an entire philosophy of survival. Humans didn't conquer their world through superior firepower or advanced technology. They survived by becoming part of an interconnected web of life that was stronger together than any individual species could be alone. Vexa watches a human child, one of the civilian researcher's daughters, pet a dog while both of them kill nearby swarm creatures just by existing in the same space. Captain Bradley, she says quietly, we have spent millennia trying to transcend biology. Perhaps we should have been learning from it instead. After the void swarm retreats, High Counselor Vexa walks up to Captain Bradley with this look of pure amazement. We call for gods or demons. You brought family instead. Tom's scratching his dog behind the ears and just grins. We don't fight wars, Counselor. We protect our pack. Today, your people became part of that pack. The Zephyrians immediately petitioned for Earth to join the Galactic Council, not as the new kids, but as the species that proved something the galaxy forgot. Real strength doesn't come from ditching biology. It comes from embracing it. Humanity's secret weapon isn't better tech. It's understanding that nobody survives alone. The cleanup takes 3 days, and it's unlike anything the galaxy has ever seen. Usually, after a major battle like this, you'd expect massive reconstruction efforts, armies of repair drones, and military occupation. Instead, you've got human children playing with Zephyrian younglings while their parents work together to clear out the last swarm traces. Dogs are running around with crystal fragments in their mouths, like they're playing the galaxy's weirdest game of fetch. Horses are giving Zephyrian kids rides through the ruins, and everyone's laughing despite the devastation around them. Vexa finds Tom sitting on a chunk of broken crystal, sharing his lunch with Rex while watching his daughter teach a group of young Zephyrians how to whistle for the ravens. The sight of it stops her dead in her tracks because it's so fundamentally different from everything she knows about warfare and diplomacy. Captain Bradley, she says, settling down beside him with that fluid grace all Zephyrians seem to have. I must confess something. When we sent that distress signal, we expected salvation to come in the form of advanced weapons or mysterious powers. We never imagined it would arrive as... She pauses, watching a cat casually walk by carrying a dead swarm scout in its mouth like a trophy. As this. Tom chuckles and tosses Rex another piece of his sandwich. What did you expect, Counselor? Some kind of cosmic superhero showing up with planet-killing weapons. Perhaps, Vex admits. Our legends speak of ancient civilizations that could reshape matter with thought alone, or beings of pure energy who commanded the forces of creation. Instead, you brought creatures that require feeding twice a day and leave hair on everything. That gets a real laugh out of Tom. Yeah, well, legends don't usually mention the practical stuff, do they? Heroes in stories never have to clean up after their magic dragons or remember to pack extra food for their mystical companions. The conversation gets interrupted when Dr. Amy Foster runs up with her tablet, practically vibrating with excitement. Captain, you need to see this. The Galactic Council has been monitoring our biological signatures across 17 different star systems. Every place that's in contact with Earth life forms is showing complete immunity to void swarm infection. We're not just talking about active protection. We're talking about permanent ecosystem changes. Vexa looks confused. I don't understand. How is this possible? Amy sits down with him, pulling up holographic displays that show the spread of Earth-based microorganisms across multiple worlds. It's like biological terraforming, but completely accidental. Everywhere humans and Earth animals go, they leave behind traces of their ecosystem. These microscopic organisms integrate with local environments and create these invisible barriers that the swarm can't cross. Tom stares at the data, then starts laughing. So you're telling me that Rex here is basically a walking biological weapon system just by existing? Not just Rex. Amy says, every human, every animal, every plant we brought with us, we're all carrying for billion years of evolutionary warfare in ourselves, and we're spreading it everywhere we go just by living our normal lives. The implications hit everyone at the same time. This isn't just about winning one battle. It's about fundamentally changing how the galaxy thinks about defense, expansion, and survival itself. Within hours, representatives from a dozen different species are arriving on the Zephyrian homeworld. The Andromedan Federation sends their top scientists. The Centaurian Empire dispatches their military strategists. Even the Silicon Brotherhood shows up, though they keep their distance from the humans for obvious reasons. But here's what's really amazing. Instead of formal diplomatic meetings in sterile conference rooms, these negotiations happen in Zephyrian gardens with human kids running around, dogs playing with alien youngsters, and horses giving rides to diplomats who've never seen a living animal before. Ambassador Helen Carter from Earth leads the discussions, but she's doing it while bottle-feeding an orphan Zephyrian infant whose parents didn't survive the swarm attacks. The sight of a human caring for an alien child while negotiating humanity's entry into galactic politics sends a message that no formal treaty could match. The final vote is unanimous. Earth doesn't just join the Galactic Council. They're invited to establish the Department of Biological Defense, something that's never existed before. The galaxy realizes that humanity's greatest gift isn't their technology or their weapons. It's their understanding that survival isn't about being the strongest or the smartest. It's about building connections, creating communities, and protecting everyone in your extended family. Tom stands up, brushes sandwich crumbs off his uniform, and looks out at the mixed groups of humans, Zephyrians, and other species working together. You know what, Rex? He says to his dog. I think this is going to be the start of something pretty special.